It's a poem by Rumi, to stay in the theme. Many of you may know it, but it is called The Guest House. And the poem goes as this. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows, who violently sweep your house, empty of the furniture. Still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. And the reason I love this poem so much is because nobody teaches us that all of the seeming negative things that we may feel, that we may experience, are also blessings in disguise. And when it comes to mental illness, no one tells a young one, or even an adult one, that it's okay what they're feeling, that each is a guest. And so to start off our night together, may we just take a deep breath, knowing that each and every breath is a new moment, each and every breath is life, is to meet God and the divine, that it's right here in our hearts, and that even in the times of sorrow, in the times of negativity, that when we take a new breath and feel and breathe new life into our bodies, we can come out on the other side from the darkness into the light. And so may we take this time together to connect, to celebrate, to honor, to witness, and to remember truly who we are, for as we tap into that light within us, that's how we can then be the light for others who may have lost their way, who may have forgotten. That to me is what prayer is, that to me is what love is, and it's an honor to be here tonight to do that with each of you.
Gary? Yay, Gary. First of all, I'm going to make an announcement. Anybody who's part of tonight at the bar, please come in here. The show is starting, okay? So get everybody from the bar. The bar will be open. But anyway, I'd like to welcome everybody. My name is Gary Carpenter. I'm the executive director of the WIN Foundation, okay? This is an organization that's new. It just started. You're going to hear a lot about it tonight. You're going to be hearing from me, Tony Marone, as well as other people. This event is sponsored by corporations, okay? You're not paying anything for tonight except your liquor bill, okay? But the liquor is good, okay? And basically, the two companies that we have here, two organizations, which I'm going to talk towards in a minute, is Helping Hearts at Home, the biggest companion care agency in Long Island, based right here in Smithtown, and the Rotary, okay? The Sunrise Rotary of Smithtown, a very big, vibrant area in Smithtown. I just like to, before I do a lot of these things, I just like to say to you, we do not charge membership. Money raised comes from those raffle items there and membership, okay, or donations, I should say. So guys, I know a lot of you guys in the audience. Fred, open up your pocketbook, okay, and spend some money right over there. But that's where we make money, is over here. We got corporate support, and we have people here. The artists that are here tonight, Ben, the steel band drummer. What do you think of him? He has donated his time. He performs at parties in corporate America. Information is on that table right there relative to him. We have one of the best music director in Long Island. in Paul from Long Island Sound. Paul, where are you?
I'm over here.
Okay, there he is. And you'll be hearing Paul during dinner. You definitely will hear him and you'll be very, very impressed. Information on Paul is over there also. Definitely take a look at it. What I'd like to do is, I don't see Assemblyman Steve Stern here, right? Yeah? No. Okay, he's not here yet. We're gifted tonight as our guest of honor, supposedly going to be here, is the Assemblyman of the State of New York, Stephen Stern.
Wow.
We'll wait for him to come here because as politicians, you know, they're never on time. Wait a minute, Steve is here? Steve is here someplace?
I can tell you I was right on time.
Oh.
Pat kept me at the bar.
Okay. Well, what we're going to start out first is before Steve speaks. Okay? What I want to do is acknowledge our corporate people, our corporate sponsors who are here. Okay? Our first sponsor is Helping Hearts at Home. They're the biggest companion care agency in Long Island, based right here in Smithtown, Long Island. Founded by Kelly Lanzin, nurse, very well-known nurse, all her years, okay, very active in Smithtown. She sits on the board of Sweet Briar Nature Center. She's on the advisory committee to good old St. Catherine's of Siena Medical Center. And this morning, guys, she was named by Long Island Business News as one of the top 50 women in Long Island. So what I'd like to do is ask Kelly, where's Kelly? Is Kelly here?
Yes.
Okay, come here, Kelly, say a few words.
I'm right here, Dad.
Now come over here.
Thank you. Here we are, post-pandemic in New York State. As we go out and take stock of what's going on around us, the carnage and the problems that are going on with society and our neighborhoods and with our families, it's obvious that we need to fix it. People like Tony Marone, we need them now more than ever. We need to get back on our feet as a society, as a community, families, and individually. Tony's foundation is solely dedicated to giving space to people to express themselves artistically and be seen by the community at large. He gives them a chance to level up, something that is a wonderful opportunity for our community.
Here or so on. You'll see. Yeah. Trying my best.
Plus, he's giving us free dinner. So I call that a win-win-win-win. I believe in his mission. I believe that what he brings to the table and what he brings to our community can help every single family here. Everybody has someone that you can think about in the back of your mind that could use just a little bit of help. They might be in the artistic field. They may be studying to be in science or something like that. It doesn't matter. Everybody's starting to get back on their feet. And we need to support each other as a community. And I am proud to have Tony at the front of this, making sure the Wynn Foundation does this for us.
Thank you, Kelly. Our next sponsor is the Smithtown Sunrise Rotary, a very vibrant organization here in Smithtown. Does a lot of good for the community. Joining us here tonight is the past president, Nick Schroeder. Nick took this chapter to be one of the best chapters in the nation. In the nation, guys. Okay? We are vibrant. Now, Nick's background is quite good if you're into sports. He's the former athletic director for the Smithtown School District. So I'm going to ask Nick if he could say a few words.
Thank you, Gary. First of all, I want to make something clear. My job was Director of Physical Education, Athletics, and Health Education. And I think that the one that I really spent the most time with was health education. And some of the things that are being talked about tonight are very important. And it's a pleasure for us to be here and for me to represent the Rotary Club and speak up here. I want to tell you about some of the things that we do. First of all, you should all be members of our Rotary Club. We're a sunrise Rotary Club. We meet at 7:45 on Thursday mornings. And we didn't meet this morning because we're here tonight. Our meeting tonight is here. Okay, so we have a lot of fun, but we raise money to give it away. And that's basically what we do. Some of the things that we've done, and I start the year from like June and July. We help the community band with all of their concerts that they have, 5 weeks in a row. We collect food. The only reason that you get into the place is if you bring food. We drop it off with us, and the people over at the Smithtown Pantry get it, and for 5 consecutive weeks, we've filled up that place over there. Okay, they have a lot of funding from Mario Matara as well, but we are the next most giving of the organizations that are out there. The other thing that we do to help them out is we give them cash, because the holidays come very quickly. And what we do is we go to the beach, and we have what we call Christmas in July. And we have raffles and things of that nature, but basically we do a 50-50 there. And we've raised well over $1,000 to give to the food pantry in the last 5 years, every single one of those years. Basically, we're supporting, I have my baseball friends all over here, and we're going to be supporting the Field of Dreams situation with pro baseball players playing this weekend. We have a lot of other things that we do. We have what we call our snowball in March, which you should come to. It's a great gala event, and we try to support autism and the Winters Center for Autism, and we try to honor a person who works with autistic people. I'm looking at Christine over here, and we also work with the Children's Foundation, and at Christmas, probably one of the greatest things we do, and again, it's our people who buy presents for her kids, who are selected by the social workers in the high schools and in the elementary schools, and we buy presents for them, and we bring their social workers over to pick those presents up. But that's a great event that we have. It costs us nothing other than to go out and purchase presents for one particular or 2 particular kids or a family. But we do so many things. And Gary will move things even further than I did. I've been president for 2.5 years. I gave it up this year so that I could be just a good member. And that's what I'm going to try to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick. You know, you talk about the growth of the Rotary. We got 3 new Rotary members here. Kelly Lanzin, our honoree, is our newest member. Kyle Bannon, the owner of Network Support Services, and he's here. And Tony Marone is our new member also. So there's a lot of fervor. I'm going to ask a question only because I got the light in front of me. Is Assemblyman Stephen Stern here?
There he is. Yes. I see him.
Well, it gives me great pleasure to introduce my close friend, Assemblyman of the State of New York, Stephen Stern.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. No, you're right. That is a bright light.
I can't see anybody.
Good to see everyone, and thank you so much for having me. I'm New York State Assemblyman Steve Stern. It's my great privilege to serve as the member of the New York State Assembly representing the 10th Assembly District of New York. The 10th Assembly District is close to the town of Huntington, and it goes over the Nassau border for a little bit into the Woodbury and Plainview area. Prior to serving in the State Assembly, I served for 6 terms, or 12 years, in the Suffolk County Legislature, representing much of the same district area. I bring that up because between my experience in the county legislature and now up in the New York State Assembly, I've had the privilege to work with and for so many of our neighbors, not just locally, but regionally throughout Long Island and now at the state level. And as everybody here knows, sometimes for good, sometimes maybe for not so good. But what we do in the state of New York, in many circumstances, leads the way for what happens in the rest of the country. And so I was asked to come this evening to see and hear about all the wonderful things that are going on. And also to talk just a little bit about the kinds of things that we're doing up in Albany that might be of interest. And so in the county legislature, during all 12 years that I served, I also served not just representing my district, but as the chairman of the Veterans and Seniors Committee. And so all of the issues dealing with the brave men and women that have served our great nation and their families, our older neighbors and their families, our loved ones with special needs, all of these issues are the issues that would come through me in my capacity as chairman of the committee. And to a large extent, these are the issues that I focus on now up in Albany. And so, in no particular order, I just want to run through some of the things that we were able to address and deal with this past session. And by the way, I bring it up because you pick up a paper, you certainly turn on the news, and what does everybody instantly think of when we think of our state government up in Albany? It's not nearly as good as the food that we're eating this evening. So, who was here at the last meeting? So I heard that my good friend Assemblyman Mike Fitzpatrick was here, and I have the great pleasure of serving with him, and I count Mike as a dear friend. But so some of the things that he might have addressed last time around might be a little different than the perspective that I bring. First of all, I have the privilege of serving as a part of the majority in the State Assembly. And so when you serve in the majority, the way Albany works, you do an awful lot of things and have the ability to bring back tremendous resources for my local area and throughout the state. And so what I'm going to be talking about for the next couple of minutes are the kinds of things I was able to work on, and these count as things that we were actually able to work on and get done. When it comes to serving our most vulnerable and their families, these are the issues, as I explained, given a little bit of background, are the issues that I'm most passionate about. And so I used to, when I used to go to, I spent a lot of time in the area school districts, mostly in my legislative district, but beyond that. And I can tell you that all of the schools that I visit have some form of a legislative committee. This is where they bring together school administration, they bring together parents and stakeholders and school board members, and most importantly, student leaders themselves. I can tell you for years, serving in these various roles, what would always be number 1, 2, and 3 on the minds of the the stakeholders when we're talking about legislative initiatives, in our schools. It's school taxes, it is after-school programs, it is, specific school programs that we all know and love. And it was always the discussion about spending and bringing home our fair share for our Long Island school districts. But I can tell you that over the past couple of years, I hear much more from the students than I do the parents. And I can tell you, items number 1, 2, and 3 now on the minds of our children, unfortunately, is mental health and the challenges that all of them across the board seem to face in varying degrees. That's troubling. And it's a concern to me, and I know it's a concern to everybody in this room. And there are lots of different reasons for where we find ourselves today. But when issues and priorities number 1, 2, and 3 on the minds of our children are school students' mental health, we have a tremendous problem in this great nation of ours. And so I take that back to Albany very seriously. And when I hear that from school children who come up on their, not just the ones that I meet in their schools, but the ones that come up for the school field trips. And we'll take a tour of the Capitol. Has anybody ever been to Albany and toured our state capitol before?
Yep.
It's pretty impressive, right? It's a pretty impressive building. It's a special place to be. And when you're on the floor of the New York State Assembly, you get a real feel and appreciation for the history that you step into. But I cannot believe for a second that in all the great history that has gone on the floor of the New York State Assembly, in our great Capitol building, that my predecessors of either party, in either the Assembly or the Senate, ever had to deal with the number 1 priority for all of our school children locally and throughout the state of New York, the mental health of our school children. And so I can tell everybody here this evening that it is on the minds of all of us that serve up in Albany, and we'll talk about some of the things that we've been able to accomplish. First of all, I know this well. I'm serving in, I've been up in Albany now for a few years. And I remember the first budget that I participated in, there was a $1 million appropriation that was made specifically for mental health services in our schools. And we all know that's woefully low. It was $1 million. This past budget that we just passed specifically for services throughout our schools and for various different types of services is now over $100 million in just a few short years. So that's good news. Unfortunately, that's where $100 million of our taxpayer dollars need to go. But I share that with everybody, not because we should be so proud of the fact that this is where we're at, but certainly the phone calls and the letters and the emails, but most importantly, the face-to-face conversations that I've had with our area young people has resonated not just with our local representation, but throughout the state of New York. This past budget time, over and above what we've been spending on our mental health in general throughout the state of New York, we got together and added an additional a little over $300 million to go for things like the expansion of physical facilities. One of the things that has always been most troubling to me is that so many of us who have loved ones that suffer from mental illness have to go and receive services from places out of New York State. That's ridiculous. Particularly with the kind of money that we have to spend, and I've been asked this many times. What is some of the holdup, and why don't we allocate appropriate resources where we know they are needed? Do we not have the money? We have the money. We know we have the money. It's not a matter of the money. Everybody in this room knows it's not about not paying enough in taxes, right? It's about priorities. And that's the discussion that we're having these days in Albany. Because I've always said this, and I know that my dear friend Mike Fitzpatrick feels the same way, that a budget is not just about the money that we spend. The budget is a document that is an expression of our values. And we should be judged by how we spend the money, particularly on loved ones and the most vulnerable in our community who desperately need that help. And so that's the kind of allocation, the kind of appropriations that we've made recently, whether it's the expansion of facilities, the expansion of specific school-based services, much larger services, and, as everybody can appreciate in this room, the retention and bringing in the next generation of our healthcare service workers, particularly those in the mental health field. We do not have enough. We will not have enough. I'm troubled about the future unless we act very aggressively right now to build the bench, to build the next generation of those that literally do God's work for so many of us and our loved ones who need assistance. And so we have started to address that as well in a very aggressive way. As I said, many of the legislative initiatives that I had the opportunity to work on, both in the county legislature and now at the state level, deal with providing assistance to our veterans, those that have served our great nation. And when it comes to our veterans, everybody, many people don't know that Suffolk County, does anybody know the public population of Suffolk County, by the way? About. The population of Suffolk County is about 1.5 million residents. I bring up 1.5 million residents because that makes Suffolk County alone larger in population than over a dozen states. And so what we do here locally matters. And we are also, Suffolk County, very proud to be the home of the largest number of veterans in all of New York State. By far. And so when I speak with our veterans and family members, we're very proud of their service, and God bless each and every one of them that served our great nation. But everyone here knows, like I know, that too many of them have come home, and too many of them continue to experience tremendous challenges that should be unacceptable to all of us, whether it's finding, keeping, maintaining, qualifying for job opportunities, run-ins with the law, family issues, substance abuse issues. Too many of our local heroes continue to have problems, challenges finding a place to call home. And if they have a roof over their heads tonight, it won't necessarily be the same one tomorrow. And so a few years ago, I wrote a series of bills that together, cumulatively, I called the Housing Our Homeless Heroes Act, which was Suffolk County's very aggressive effort to end veterans' homelessness in our local area. A lot of hard work, a lot of bringing together of very important stakeholders between government, not-for-profit organizations, and after decades of trying to bring about an end to veterans' homelessness, about a year and a half later, with this and many other local initiatives, we actually got our written certification from the federal government that yes, in fact, Suffolk County had brought about an effective end to veterans' homelessness in our county. And that's something we should all be very proud of. And an initiative that has now become the model for the state of New York and for the rest of the country. I bring it up because it's not just about housing as a housing issue, although it's critically important and a top priority, but the mental health of our veterans, men and women, continues to be a tremendous problem. And so as a part of this last budget, we were able to get the resources to bring about a substantial expansion of the Joseph P. Dwyer program. If you're not familiar with the Dwyer program, it is our peer-to-peer PTSD program that provides ongoing, consistent, and pretty aggressive mental health services for our veterans in a peer-to-peer way. As we know, with our veterans, with many stakeholder groups, peer-to-peer works much better and it is the best model. I bring it up because it's something that we should all know about. I bring it up because if we know a veteran in need, it's something that we should be bringing to their attention. But I bring it up also because we created the program in Suffolk County. It is now the model for everyone else to follow. And like so much of what we discuss this evening, like so much of what we learn about through dedicated professionals and advocates for the mental health of our loved ones and our neighbors in our Long Island region, what we do here matters. How it's presented matters. And the information that we take back up to Albany or down in Washington, regardless of party, matters. And so these discussions that we have, and whether we enjoy our company and we listen to some great music and we buy some raffles to support a very important cause, whether I read a very inspirational book once, twice, 5 times maybe, there is impact that we all have the opportunity to make and that is made on us to bring about positive change. And I know that Gary, you and Patty and your team and everybody involved here brings together some of the very best of our community to share ideas, to make sure that your voices are heard. And I can assure you that your voices are heard, we are listening, and together we'll continue to make great impact for now and for generations to come. But thank you. Thanks so much.
Okay, what do you think about Assemblyman Stephen Stern? I have the honor of working with that guy for 21 years, okay, on his campaign when he was a legislator and assemblyman. I'm the treasurer of his organization. I keep him out of jail, okay, and he's done a good job of that. But right now, Assemblyman has a key presentation.
Thank you. So we were talking about making impact and how it's a responsibility for all of us to be involved, to have a voice and to make impact that will have an effect on others and set an example for others to follow. I meet a lot of impressive people in my travels. I have the opportunity to hear their stories. I have the privilege of hearing about their successes and sharing their stories with others. Here this evening is a tremendous advocate that most know, that we wanted to recognize for how outstanding efforts that impact our immediate community, but again serve as an example for all of us to follow well beyond Smithtown and Long Island. So on behalf of the 20 million residents of the great state of New York and all of our neighbors here, it is my great privilege to present this legislative citation from the New York State Assembly to one of our neighbors and one of our great advocates that represents all of us very well. We're all going to congratulate Linda Ventura.
We have to talk. Because I'm listening to you. The reality of what's going on in the world.
Well, we're going to hear from Linda very soon, okay? But before we go any further, I like to call attention to some people who are in the audience, okay? And again, the lights are in my eyes. I'm doing this from memory. But we have a lot of key people in the Smithtown community here. Okay, I'd like to recognize them. And as I recognize them, if you could just put your hand up so everybody can see them. Joining us here tonight is the CEO of the biggest assisted living program in Smithtown area, Paul Wasser from St. John Land. We also have our neighbors from Catholic Health Service, St. Catherine's of Siena Medical Center. I know I invited, and I don't know if she's out there because I can't see. Is Mary Ellen here?
Yes.
Okay, Mary Ellen McCrossin. And we also have Richard Schmidt. Rick Schmidt. Rick Smith is the chairman of the board of the hospital. Somebody that I'm honored to be on the board with. Rick. He's also a decent baseball player. And he's a great golfer also. Great golfer. Okay, also, I got to call attention to our videographer for the Win Foundation, Tom LaFaso, right out there. Tom. He does all our social media, okay? And he's done a great job with it, okay? Other people that I want to recognize is one of our board members is here. I think Fred Cambria is here, right? Fred is one of our board members, but a little history of Fred. Fred is a great baseball player, pitched for the Pittsburgh Pirates and beat Tom Seaver at Shea Stadium. Well, you know I have to embarrass you, Fred. There's so many other people that are here. I just like to recognize one healthcare person that's here. Community home care happens to be my wife, Patty Carpenter. Okay, I just got a couple of things to say. And if I didn't acknowledge you being here, okay, excuse me, because I'm telling you, that's blinding to me. But for Tony and I, tonight, being here, it was a journey. It's a journey that started 40 years ago. I met my good friend Tony Moreau, and we worked in healthcare together. We gravitated very closely. Then he became a noted author, a great book writer. I loved his books. His books were spirit-filled. They addressed social issues that we're talking about here tonight. Over the years, we gravitated close together, and I said, Tony, let's take this and put it out there in the world. So we started by thinking we were going to put together a cultural arts center in Northport. Then we kind of paused that, because Tom came to us and said, guys, listen, there's a better mechanism. And that mechanism is social media. Now, Tony and I are old schools, okay? When we hear social media, that's not my background nor Tony's. But he talked to us. He said, take what the talent that Tony has, I'll put it throughout the America. And we enlisted Amazon. And today, Tony has sold over 1,000 books on Amazon. And that's only in America. We're now moving to a platform on the international level, because his work should be all over the world. So this was good, but Tony and I had an idea. We still wanted visibility. We wanted to do something, okay? And we met Chrissy, the owner of the manager of Smithtown Pasta House. And we said, what we'd like to do is provide a dinner filled with education and talent. And so we decided to bring it here. And this is now a monthly basis. We will bring this education to us, okay? So it's kind of like a preview. But what I'd like to do is turn the mic to the founder of the Win Foundation, Tony Moreau.
What we're trying to do tonight is raise money so we could give it away. And what we're doing is we're raising money and we're giving it to Linda. We can listen to Stephen all night, the politicians, about how much money there is out there, $100 million. But how much money is coming into our community? I kind of believe that our community can change suicide. I think suicide is preventable. I think we could do a lot better. So Tom and I had some ideas as far as what we also want to do with the money, and I thought Tom might want to say a few words.
Well, I just want to say thank you to everybody coming out tonight. My name is Tom Lafaso. I am helping out Anthony here with everything in the marketing realm, from videography services to emails, Instagram, Facebook ads. We're really getting the word out there. It doesn't cost tons of money. Like, some people think advertising is like, you gotta spend thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, you don't. If you want to get a message out, especially to a local group of people, it doesn't cost a lot. And we've probably spent, I'm gonna say, anywhere from like $300 to $500, probably closer to $300, and we've probably gotten, I think I looked at it last week, and it was up to like about 50,000 impressions we've gotten on an Instagram, Facebook ad. Again, not a lot of money, so this is kind of part of what we want to do, is be able to get messages out there. And these Facebook and Instagram ads that we have, it's actually a video of myself just literally saying your life matters. That's literally the only video that we have, and that's it. There's no sale, there's no sign up here, click now, buy this, there's none of that. It's just your life matters. And what we're doing is we're advertising those videos on schools all over Long Island. It's amazing, because where do young people go to be influenced? Social media. So that's kind of our goal, is to be able to go on social media and influence these young people. I know we can't change people, but we can influence people. So cheers, everybody, and there's tons of raffles over there. We have QR codes that are hanging up over there. They're also on the table. If you take your phone, you can scan them. You can either buy one of Tony's books, you can see it over there. It goes right to the same place, the money, or you can just donate directly to the cause. So thank you again, everyone.
We have to move this along. We're really far behind. The whole idea is to raise money. And in the beginning, I just didn't know where I was raising money. I just didn't know where to deposit it. Kind of like the quarterback, and I turn around and there's no running back. And then I met Linda Ventura. And Linda will come up later and explain what she does. Basically, what she does is, when I have my partner here, Joe Martell, with CPAs, and we worked 35 years. We had healthcare, so we did South Oaks, we did Seafield, and there was a lot of bills. You had a problem, there were people that you go see, a lot of money spent. And then all of a sudden you run out of money and you don't know where to turn. And you turn to Linda Ventura. It's kind of like Michael Landon, she gets an angel. And when she gets up here, when everybody's saying no, she's saying, we have a spot for you. A very important spot. And as a grandfather, as a dad, with grandchildren, you see that sometimes you're up against the wall. It's really neat to have somebody that's there. We have to push on. My books are back there to be bought. I have 4 on Amazon right now. Basically faith-based books. But I want to introduce you to somebody who's here who also wrote a book. And we have some ties to Father Pizzarelli, the Hope House in Port Jeff. And I would like to bring him up. Michael, where are you? There he is. When I looked up Father Pizzarelli, somehow I started seeing some of Father Pizzarelli's articles. And he kept on mentioning this book. And it's a very special book. So I called Michael and I said, Michael, we do the same thing, Michael. The titles are different, but the same book. And I would like to let you explain what this book is about.
Thank you all so much for inviting me into this space. Just want to start by any event that opens with a Rumi poem. I feel very much at home, so thank you for that. That was a beautiful way to start this evening. Before I get into my biography and what I do now and the book, in the spirit of tonight, I think it's important to kind of talk about where I have been and what I have gone through that has allowed me to stand here today. Before writing this book, I spent most of my 20s, my early 20s especially, in and out of every psychiatric hospital and drug rehab throughout New York State. I know all too well the sound of the hospital door closing behind you, looking down at your shoes and seeing that they've taken your shoelaces. Because even your shoelaces pose too much of a threat for you to have. Because you're that suicidal. You're that much of a danger to yourself. Spending my time on what they would call one-on-one care. For those that are not familiar with one-on-one care, that means that somebody from the hospital staff sat beside you every minute of the day, always with their eyes on you, because they were that afraid that you might kill yourself. I know what it's like to wake up in the hospital after overdosing in the room that I grew up in, the room that I spent my childhood in, the room that my mother had to walk up the stairs and find her youngest son overdosed on the floor from heroin. Waking up in that hospital, not knowing what had happened, but my mom feeding me ice chips, refusing to leave my side. And from that space, from that darkness, from that mud, was able to bloom a lotus that now is doing the work that I am today. It's not separate. The book that I wrote, the Community Growth Center, the nonprofit that I founded in Port Jefferson Station, is not separate from the sorrow and the pain and the despair that I was in. It is an extension of it. That is the seed. When given the right conditions, we're able to blossom into a flower that can help now spread joy and hope and love to the community, to those that are hurting. So for me, as I was on my journey to recovery, I thought, what are those conditions? What allows me to stand here when so many have struggled to get back up? When so many have not been able to recover? When so many have not been able to find their way home? And for me, the two things that became the most important that I wanted to set the Community Growth Center on the course to doing is a relationship with God, the higher power of your understanding, and community. Those two things, finding your relationship with God, discovering a God that loves you no matter what you have been through, no matter what you have done, no matter who you are, no matter who you love, no matter how you dress, no matter what your pronouns are, no matter what you've been through, there is a God that loves you unconditionally, no matter what, and we have to open up our heart to receive that love. We have to be willing to open up our heart and receive that love. I come from a Christian tradition, and I've always loved the story of the prodigal son. The prodigal son who goes off into a life of despair and destitute, and in a moment of awakening returns home, not to judgment or shame or anger, but to a Father, to a God that is there waiting with open arms that says, I love you no matter what. We have to have that relationship with God. We have to know that we are loved unconditionally. And that's not just an individual love. That is a love that is communal. That is a love that is rooted in relationship and in community. And so at the Community Growth Center, what we do is try to mirror the love of God through our actions. How can we as a community make sure that this love of God that can sometimes be hard to see can be embodied and lived out in the way that we love each other, in the way that we welcome people in the way that we provide services and groups and counseling and retreats and workshops, all free of charge to the community. Because we don't want anyone who's in a position that says, I feel like I'm ready. I feel like I'm ready to go to this meditation group. I feel like I'm ready to receive spiritual counseling. I feel like I'm ready to be loved. But I don't have the right insurance. Shit, I don't have enough money. We want to break down all of those barriers and say, you're welcome here. Come just as you are with whatever you have, and let's put it all together and we're going to make it work, because that's what community is about. And so at the Community Growth Center, that is the work that we do. How do we give people an opportunity to encounter that love of God and to encounter the love of neighbor and to really feel like they belong? Because what people are searching for so much, the biggest struggle is not feeling like they belong. Not feeling like they belong in a community, not feeling like they belong in their own body. And we spend all of our time running away from ourselves. That's really what addiction is. Addiction is just the act of running away, afraid to be at home. So how do we help people come back home to themselves, to their community, to know that they're loved by others, by God? And then the other piece that people are longing for, deeply, deeply longing for, is the ability to love. It's not just about receiving love. People are desperate to be able to love another person, to be able to support them, to be there for them. That's what community is. Being able to receive love and give love. And all of that is what we look to embody at the Community Growth Center. In the book, God's Presence in the Present, Contemplative Prayer and the Healing Process, is an outline of how we can begin in our own personal journey to touch upon that love of God, to discover through our prayer and meditation this God that dwells within us, that is inviting us back home, that wants to love us, that is no further away from us than our breath. Every breath that we take is a prayer. Every breath we take is echoing the name of God. And so through our prayer, through our practice, can we discover that God that dwells within us? And then can we share it with those around us? If we can do that just a little bit of God goes a long way. A little bit of God goes a long way. The books are for sale in the back, and every book that we sell will go right back to the Wynn Foundation. Okay? That's how we do it. That's how we do it. Because what we give away, we get back tenfold.
We get away.
Exactly. And that's so thank you for inviting me to be here. Thank you for all of the work that you do. And I'm just honored to be here. Thank you.
Was that totally fantastic? Let's hear it for Michael. We have, I failed to say one thing. To put this all together, it was more than just Tony and I. I have to give credit to two people who stood behind us the whole way. Our wives, both named Patty. we have one more speaker. Okay, just one more speaker, and then we're going to have a great dinner, and Paul's going to be entertaining us. But what I want to do is, most people who know me know that 40 years ago, my life changed. My family life changed. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. It was an event in my life that totally changed me and my family, okay, and caused me to do a lot of thinking. I reached out for help. I reached out to the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, became active with them, got a lot of information, did a lot with them, promoted their cause, became an advocate. So much so that I was named chairman of the board there for about 4 years. During that time, I had an opportunity to meet some great people, whether they were physicians, medical people, or individuals. I met a lady 25 years ago. Her name is Janet Werner, okay? She had a great story, and we bonded. Time went on, and we kind of separated. Well, about 4 months ago, because of my friends Tony and Corinne right here, they brought Janet back into my life. And she is here tonight to talk for us. Janet, come up and speak to us. Oh, there she is. There she is.
Thank you very much. I keep wanting to call him Gary Carter. So my husband liked Gary Carter. Think about that, Fred. As Crane Paul said, don't give up to the last out of the last game. So we'll see what happens. So thank you very much for the invitation. It's been 25 years since I've seen him. And to a friend of a friend, God works in mysterious ways and things work out for a reason. So I want to read a passage from my book that just came out in January. And I won't make this long because I know you're all looking hungry there. Stomachs take precedence. One day there was a knock at my door. I opened it and there was a figure standing there. I could not discern if it was male or female, as there was a veil covering its face. "Can I help you?" I said. The figure just stood there. "Can I help you?" I said again. The figure said nothing. I started to get an uneasy feeling. "What do you want?" I said impatiently. "I'm here," said the figure in a deep, slow whisper that sounded like an impending death knell. "You'd better leave," I screamed, as fear washed over me like a wave knocking me down on a stormy beach. The figure turned away and left me shaking, my heart racing, my hands sweating. I slammed the door, terrified that it might return. That was April 7th of 1986. That was the day I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. It was a shock. I went to the beach and cried that day. I didn't know what to do. I guess I was lucky because my coworker had MS, and she's telling me about all these bizarre symptoms that she had. And I said, "Oh, I can't believe this, I can't believe it." So there was a book that was written by Richard Swank at the time, who was touted as a quack by the MS community, who is now revered by the MS community. And I read the book and I said, he's writing to me to a T for me. Everybody in this room has a challenge, whether it's an illness, a family situation. I asked a group of people one day, what is one of your challenges? And one man said, "I have a 17-year-old and a mother-in-law living with me." I said, "Okay, there's a challenge right there. Good for you. Good for you." There's a saying that I live by, and it's success is how you handle failure. And I've always lived by that because I agree, if you're given a challenge, how you handle that challenge, you reach down inside of you and you find the inner strength to fight that challenge. I have to give my husband, who's sitting all the way in the corner there, Ernie, he's my rock, as the other spouses are who have MS in their family. Without him, I couldn't have gotten through a lot of these things. He's former law enforcement, and when he says, go lay down, I know you look terrible, I go lay down because I look terrible. But challenges, everyone faces those challenges. I've been fortunate in my life because I've had so many good people in my life. I taught for almost 40 years on the college level, on the high school level, and when I asked for an air conditioner and disclosed my illness, I got an air conditioner in the next day. So people have been very good to me, and I have to say my journey has been wonderful. What was happening to my body? And in my book I write, it's called A Pear in an Apple Tree, and I was standing at the sink one day feeling so low because my MS was getting to me, and I just blurted out, I feel like a pear in an apple tree, and that's where the title of the book came from. My favorite part of the book is I've asked 22 people to give me their words of wisdom when they're faced with a challenge, whether it's MS or cancer or the loss of a loved one, and that was my favorite part of it because I really know that they're my friends because of what they've written. There are golden moments in having MS because I've met some wonderful people. 25 years ago, he was Father of the Year, I was Mother of the Year, and it was like being a prom queen and a prom queen. Our picture's in the book, it's a lot of fun. But the reason I received the award was there was an art contest, and it was MS Through the Eyes of a Child. And my son was about 7 or 8 at the time, and he drew a poster of us camping and hiking and going to the movies. And of course he didn't win any prizes, but we went to pick up the poster, and the director of the MS Society at the time, Pam, I think it was, said, can I talk to him for a few minutes? So she took him into the office, spoke with my son James, and then 3 weeks later I got a letter saying that I was MS Mother of the Year in '97. And the reason was, she said that she was so impressed with his attitude that he didn't let MS get to us, and that was the title of his poster, We Don't Let MS Get to Us. And again, having that challenge, you're meeting new people, you're imparting your information. A couple members of my family can't believe I have MS. They go, why do you have to sleep 12 hours a day? You know, why, you look so great, there's nothing wrong with you. So the part that we need to do as MSers is to educate people. If they have MS, you have to feel like you're not alone, because if I talk to someone who has MS, and I've already done so this evening, I like to share my experiences and hear their experiences. And then people who don't have MS, we need to educate those people, whether it's someone who has cancer or MS or anything, we need to educate them so they understand, so there'll be more compassion. So I really agree education is the key to understanding. So my journey has been wonderful. I've met wonderful people, and I'm doing pretty well, knock on wood. I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good, and my husband won't let me get any worse than I am right now, except for yelling at him when he doesn't do something I've asked him to do. It's okay. So I'm not going to keep you much longer because I know you're hungry. I have 2 presentations. Is Linda Ventura still in the room? Where is she? Oh, she's here. Okay. Well, I'll talk a little bit about it. So many things I wanted to do when I retired, and I said, I'm going to do these things whether I can do it or not. So on my 70th birthday, I signed up for tap lessons and cello lessons, and that was 2 years ago. So I'm having fun with that. And then I belong to a group called the New York Giving Dolls, and we make dolls for children who are either ill, they've lost a parent, there's a situation in the home. We have, to date, we've made almost 81,000 dolls, and they're all handmade. It takes about 40 hours to make each doll, and each of the ladies, there's 300 of us, we meet every Thursday, not all 300, but each of us has a part. So someone makes the hair, someone stuffs the doll, someone makes the clothes. We have very strict rules. We're not allowed to sell them. We're not allowed to raffle them off. We have to give them away. So it's a wonderful group of ladies. And when I'm making a doll, I always wonder what child is going to get my doll. So it's very rewarding. So Linda Ventura, if you'd like to come up. I read about your organization, and it's absolutely amazing. So I'd like to give to you 2 of our handmade dolls, so you know what kinds of things that we do, and maybe we can make a contact, and then our group can make dolls for your clients. They're beautiful dolls. Thank you so much. So we have a girl doll. And then we have a boy doll. We have, they come with a blanket, they come with a tote bag, they're named. So if you have a special name for someone, we can do that. We send them to all over the world. We sent a box of dolls to a school in Australia that was burned down in the wildfires the year before last. We've been sending them to Haiti. We've sent them to Africa. We will be sending them to Maui. So, and we'd like to work with your organization as well, making the dolls. What you do is amazing. Thank you so much. We'll be in touch. And Paul Wasser, I'd like you to come up as well.
I didn't know we needed to give you a
I have a dear friend who had Alzheimer's. She was my mother's best friend, and we, in our doll organization, we make friendship dolls, and they're specifically for Alzheimer's patients with dementia. And we found out that, and you probably know this, people with Alzheimer's and dementia, they need to cuddle. They need that doll. So we gave one to our friend. She just loved it. I gave one to my student's grandmother who had dementia, and she loved that doll. The doll was named, a special name we named her, and she always clung to that doll, and it comforted her. So I'd like to present you with one of those dolls. And they're referred to as friendship dolls. Wow. And then we already do work with St. John Land, but just so you know. And also for the clients there, we make bookmarks and eyeglass cases and tea bag holders. So you can take those and give those out as well. So.
I just want to say that these dolls, believe it or not, just give a resident with Alzheimer's or dementia such ease, okay, and peace that you wouldn't believe. I mean, it's that simple. It's that simple. So thank you so much, and I very much appreciate it. Thank you.
Get the treatment that they need. And tonight, I don't even want to waste any time. I want to bring up my really good friend, John Venza, who is the Vice President of Adolescent Treatment over at Outreach in Brentwood, and is a 13-year-old to 18-year-old facility for substance use and mental health. So I'll let you intellectualize that for a second. 13 to 18 years old. That's the population that we're talking about right now. So, Assemblyman Stern said, mental health for school-age children, but they are using substances at a very young age, and unfortunately, with fentanyl on the street and xylazine, they're dying at an alarming rate. So I want to bring John up because now in the infinite wisdom, we've legalized marijuana in the state of New York. So he's going to give you an education really for yourselves, for your children and your grandchildren, and this is important information. John?
Good evening, folks, and I'll trying to kind of keep this moving along. Linda asked me to come speak tonight. I didn't really know where I was coming to speak, but when Linda asked me to do a favor, I usually help out because she knows how to track me down in evil ways. So, like she said, I'm John Benza. I oversee outreach. I've been there with them for 33 years. I'm 42 years in the field of mental health and substance use. I've worked primarily with children and transitional age youth. And she said, you know, the marijuana was legalized and amidst everything else. And I have a slideshow here that is kind of an abbreviation of what I do for parents in a lot of the school districts. I do that on the side to educate. Along with what I do and being in the field, about 7 years ago, my 21-year-old died of a fatal fentanyl overdose. And unfortunately, what that means is, it doesn't matter how much you know, it doesn't know what the work that you do, how much love, how much education. You meet the one wrong person at the one wrong time, you make the one bad decision. But I think we can all agree with young people that one bad decision in your late teens should never be punishable by death. And unfortunately, that was the case. So I don't just do the work, I'm mission driven like Linda. And so I'm gonna let you sit back, eat your dinner, and I'm gonna talk, show a bunch of slides. I'll try and speak to the slides for the folks who can't quite see the screen, and I apologize. I'll see if I come over here so I don't have my back to you, okay? And, okay. So, real quickly, the first slide, why do most young people speak to use? And, the two I like to clue in on is feel good or feel better, right? Feel good or feel better. A little bit of spin on words. Feel good, young kids, teenagers have figured out substances make you feel good for a short while. And, when we're not meeting them where they're at, they're not going to buy into anything we have to say because our honest approach is critically important. But a lot of other kids use not to feel good, but to feel better. Feel better from what? Well, when you heard earlier, the talk about young kids and mental health, we're amidst a mental health crisis with young kids. From anxiety, stress, the not enoughs, which we used to talk about self-esteem, right? Not good enough, not pretty enough, not handsome enough, not athletic enough.
Isolation.
Relational bullying, friendlessness, depression. I think somebody saw my slides, so it said isolation, right? And the result is self-medication to feel better. Whether you start using substances as a kid to feel good or to feel better, it's like going over to Verrazano. Whether you take the upper or the lower, you still end up in Staten Island. It's the principle of equifinality, right? And whether you're using to feel good or feel better, if you keep using as a young kid, you're going to eventually end up with addiction and dependency. Right? So let's talk about cannabis and teens. So I'm going to be real clear. I go around the island, around the state, present statewide. I don't dig into the political battle. I'm not going to wrestle around in the mud about adult legal cannabis and adults. I'm not taking that one on. There's too many political implications with that. However, when it comes to the under 21 crowd, the science and the research is growing every day, and there are clear and present risks for those kids. So these are some numbers from my 2 adolescent facilities, my 45-bed facility for Nassau and Suffolk children, and my Ridgewood facility, which is kids from Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan. And in the past 24 months, we serviced 520 teenagers inpatient treatment. And the marijuana involved number was 88.6%. Almost all of it, marijuana involved. However, marijuana primary was about 64%, which meant the majority of these kids are in a highest level of care, anywhere from 90 days up to a year, for chronic, regular, multiple time in a day cannabis use. Which means you don't need benzodiazepines, you don't need other pills, you don't need powders for the wheels to wobble and fall off the cart. And the kids at this level of care are clear evidence of that. So, those TV sets, some of us may remember these, right? It's a picture of an old TV. And I think that's what computers used to look like, right? Yeah, right? That was our smartphones, and this was our contact list, right, back in the day. Our music, although I do hear vinyl is making a comeback. And some of us actually had these in our cars, right? Yeah, right? We thought we were pretty hot stuff too if we had an 8-track player in our car, right? And this was the weed of the 70s. This was cannabis of the 70s. And if we look at it, it was brick weed, which meant it came over in bricks. It was dried out. There wasn't very much THC in it. It was from the leaves, lower on the plant. The lower the leaves on the plant, the less THC concentration. And it was chock full of seeds and stems. And we look at this and we say, you know, if the technology changed as much as the photos I just showed you, what makes us believe for a second that cannabis 40 or 50 years later has not changed? And some people say, I hear it's stronger. So we're going to talk about what that really means. Okay? The federal government has been doing a study probably the last 45 years, and they've been going around the country and been sampling samples of THC off the street to look at the average concentration of THC. THC is the chief psychoactive ingredient in marijuana, right? So that's the part that's getting people high, THC. And you can see in the 60s and 70s, on average, it was about 1%. Your garden variety brand, Acapulco Gold, Colombian Red, right? That stuff in the 70s was about 1%, 1 to 2%. By the mid-80s, it was about 3.5%. And the trend line continued, and we have seen as recently as 2011, the average jumped to about 11.5%, and the trend line continues, and in 2021, we're almost at an average of 15% by concentration. So 1 or 2%. For parents of the baby, people from the boomer generation, we remember that's the THC, that was the cannabis then. It's a completely different drug today at 15%. Many of the strains are as high as 28%, 27%. And if that wasn't bad enough, let's talk about concentrates. Concentrates, basically solventless or solvent-based. So many of the common concentrates are what you see up here, distillate being one of the main ones. These are concentrates, meaning they are different methods of taking the THC off of the cannabis plant and providing it to be used in a concentrated form. Distillate is very, very common because it's odorless and tasteless. This is what's being used in a lot of the cartridges that kids are smoking and vaping, the THC. This is what's used in a lot of the edibles that the kids are ingesting and ending up in the emergency room with. So concentrates are a big issue. So I'm going to go into a little bit further detail. Whether they're solventless or solvent-based, so solvents are some type of additive or chemical to remove the THC. Solventless is other methods using generally heat and pressure to remove it. The solvent-based concentrates average between 54 and 69% THC. Some as high as 80%. I was up at Harvard for the addiction conference about 2 or 3 months ago, and their studies are showing closer to 90%. This is pure THC. Even if it's non-solvent based, you're still getting averages between 39 and 60%. 60, 70, 80%. Dorothy was a long ways from Kansas, and this is a long ways away from marijuana of the 1970s, 1980s, even the 90s. It's a different drug altogether. So one thing as a takeaway tonight, I implore you not to speak to it as weed or marijuana, but speak to it as THC, because that is the chemical that your kids are getting high with. So we talked about the plant strains between 15 and 30%. The challenge with this is the concentrates, the higher the concentrations, the higher the likelihood for complications such as anxiety, agitation, paranoia, and psychosis. And we'll talk briefly about cannabis-induced psychosis in a moment. Marijuana concentrates historically were made in a commercial setting. This was done in the first legal sense under the auspice of trying to deliver concentrated forms for medicinal purposes, but they're made in the home setting also, and you'll see a couple ways kids are making it at home. So common solvents, what are the solvents we're talking about? CO2, which is a refrigerant. Butane, which goes in your cigarette lighters, right? Alcohol, ethyl alcohol. I mean, butane is one of the most common solvents used to create concentrates, but butane is a poison gas. But the reason why it's used is it's cheap, it's relatively inexpensive, and the hydrate reportedly lasts longer. But it's a neurotoxin, which means it kills brain cells, non-regenerative tissue. So a couple other methods of concentrates, CO2 or dry ice. You've seen those blocks of dry ice at picnics or carnivals. Well, this is shaved dry ice that's put in a bucket with a whole bunch of cannabis plants. And basically it freezes the resin glands off the plant, and it goes through these dry ice bags that are micro mesh filters. So what you come out with, again, is pure THC. So that's CO2 removal if you're not using butane. Bubble hash ice wax is another method that kids have been messing with, and basically 5-gallon Home Depot buckets and a series of different ice wash bags that are different, almost like different grit sandpapers. They're different finite meshes that they go through. And what you can see is just a little elbow grease. Ice cubes, ice water, and the cannabis, and through a progressive series of agitation, like a washing machine for your clothes, it agitates and freezes the THC right off the plant until you end up with what you get in the corner, which is pure THC in concentrate form. Rosin, which is a dabbable, solventless concentrate. Rosin is basically just heat and pressure. So whether it's done in the commercial press, we're pressing the cannabis plant to squeeze out the pure THC. And for the do-it-yourselfers or our kids in the basements or in their bedrooms, all you really need is a nugget of weed, a flat iron for your hair, and a piece of parchment paper. That's gentle pressure, that's heat, and it squeezes the THC right out of the nugget of weed. And you can see, I'm sorry you can't see over there, but essentially you get the pure rosin that comes out. And depending upon the heat and the amount, you'll get a little different texture, different color. That's it after you squeeze it out and you want to form it into a brick form. Shatter gets its name just like glass. It shatters like glass. It's a translucent concentrate. Again, it's made with butane or other petroleum products. You say to yourself, wait a minute, we're using all these toxins when we're making this. So how do we get it out? Well, you're not getting most of it out. Kids are smoking that with it. Dry sift, which is basically a mechanical method. So if you picture a nugget of weed, right, these little buds of weed, with a sift box, which is that, it's like a window screen. You're essentially mechanically removing and rubbing the pure THC off the nugget of weed, right? And essentially, you go through a couple different meshes, and you get what's called keef. Butane hash oil, BHO, essentially just a grinder for weed, and you grind up the weed. And when you get enough ground up weed, basically you have a tube with a coffee filter and a rubber band at the other end of it. Into the receptacle you enter a whole can of butane lighter fluid, and the butane will essentially just strip, remember butane, a poison gas, will just strip the THC right off, and there you see in the Pyrex dish, which is pure THC and butane. And the idea is now to cook it out. And so what kids will do over a hot plate or the stove, just cook it out, and as you cook the gas out, it becomes what calls that waxy form, hence wax, right? And essentially you get to that different texture right there, depending upon how long and what solvent you use and how long you cook it out. You'll get different textures, different colors. That's why there's no one particular way that wax looks. By the way, just the proper language, when you hear people talking about dabbing, dab or dab is an increment of wax. Wax is the substance, right? So dabbing, right? Now, I'm using all this nomenclature, and I'm watching some of the expressions around the room, and this is not the picture that people are making when you see your wallet. I think I heard so-and-so's kid got into smoking pot, right? And now this is not the image we're thinking of, is it? We're thinking about packing a wooden bowl, or rolling a joint, right? Or maybe even a bong swat. Well, that was 30 or 40 years ago, but today it's a different game. So let's talk about THC oil carts. So carts, short for cartridge, right? Oil, 710 is used sometimes in social media, which is oil upside down and backwards. Dank, for dank tanks. And you're talking 75% concentration THC. This has become a huge issue for all the schools in the school districts. I'm already scheduled to present the full portion of this to parents in about 7 different districts. Schools are having lots of kids out to the emergency department because of cannabis overstimulation, and it's becoming a big issue because they don't know what to do with it. By the way, only one of the 40 to be scheduled legal dispensaries have opened on Long Island. This is in spite of the other 39 that may still open, unfortunately, right? I mean, it's good right now they haven't opened yet, and by the way, those dispensaries will be selling all these products you're seeing. Cartridges, right? Wax, edibles, and flower food, right? So essentially that's a, yes. Yes. Yeah. Right. Good job, good job. And you know what? Unfortunately, a lot of towns did not opt out. And you know, unfortunately, I live in Brookhaven, where we have the highest amount of fatal overdoses. And unfortunately, we're opted in, but I still can't figure that one out. But good for you, because you guys did the right thing. Because you opted out. People can always opt in, not that they want to, but once you opted in, you can't opt out. It's kind of like a game, right? You're born in, you're beat out, right? But so, do you know what kids are smoking? When I first started getting calls from superintendents and principals in the schools, and they said we have kids vaping, I said, what are they vaping? They said, what do you mean? It's nicotine, isn't it? I said, how do you know it's nicotine? So some schools began to get them lab tested, which is strongly recommended if the schools are really looking to kind of get their arms around this. Juul is another way that kids are commonly deceiving kids. If we had time, I would show you a brief video. We take some liquid cannabis, and we do what kids call as hijack the Juul cartridge, where you empty out the Juul cartridge, and you're refilling it with cannabis oil. So some parents have said, oh, I don't like it, but it's nicotine, but it's really THC. So again, remember, what's that? Virtually odorless, because remember it uses distillate, which is basically virtually odorless or tasteless. So that's why a lot of kids, one of the indicators we used to have is when kids would smoke in their homes or in their bedrooms, we knew they were on the progression of acting out, not worrying about getting in trouble from their parents. It was an indicator. Today, that indicator's gone, because the kids can basically smoke all day, all evening, on the Amtrak, on their way back to Albany, wherever they're going, because it's virtually odorless, and nobody even knows it. So it's a real problem, because that means they're constantly redosing all day long. So are cannabis concentrates the future? Absolutely. Within 2 years after Colorado went adult legal, there was a 125% increase. So what can we expect in New York State within 2 years? In the legal states, you've seen as much as 40% more consumers turning to concentrates. Along with that has been an increase in car accidents. And in one study in Colorado, almost a 66% increase in fatalities with THC involving the driver. And then you can see the trend line shows a marked increase in those fatalities where THC was in the driver right after legalization. I don't know, this image, hearing all this, it just really makes us comfortable giving our new drivers the keys now, because most teenagers' attitudes around smoking and driving is it's not as bad as drinking and driving. Now, that's a pretty scary paradigm, because we all know judgment, reflexes, and timing is all just as equally impaired. And if they're smoking these strong concentrates, these kids they're clearly not supposed to be behind the wheel, but the attitude is not as bad or not like drinking and driving. And the challenge is, we see the fatal crashes in the legal states, and it circles around the age group that we never quite got our arms around with drinking and driving, the young kids. So edibles are a huge concern, because edibles are extremely popular amongst kids. They're also what's causing a lot of the emergency department admissions. An edible comes to see just about every product. The products with edibles that are centered around candy wrappers, cartoon characters, New York State is putting a law against that where it has to be clear wrap. The challenge with that is that these things are supposed to be not allowed, but the street vendors aren't going to care. The street vendors are going to continue to use cartoon characters, resemble real candy brands, and whatnot, because they will take the fine because the money they're making and resume selling. And edibles are a lot more powerful because, not just because of the concentrates, but because there's an additional metabolite that happens in the liver that makes the edibles last longer and even have a more potentiated effect. I'm being asked $1 million question, the solution. I'm going to give you a thought. I mean, the solution is we know that if we can get kids help, if we can get kids away from cannabis between 4, 5, or 6 weeks, cognition improves, right? The mood starts to re-regulate itself, right? Sleep patterns improve. But the key is, how do you get a teenager who's smoking multiple times in a day? And by the way, you become cannabis dependent. There is drug-specific withdrawal. Trying to get the kid away for up to 4, 5, or 6 weeks is very difficult. Now, I run the finest inpatient facility, the largest one in the downstate New York area, for mental health and substance use. It's a 45-bed facility. I opened it back in 1991. Since COVID has hit, and we're still kind of reconnecting ourselves, as I speak to you today, I've got about 15 or 16 empty beds. 16 empty beds, because it's very, very difficult to get kids help. Years ago, some of you remember that if a kid was acting out, parents would go to family court and get a PINS petition, right? And that PINS petition would help as a person in need of supervision, and it would help leverage getting your children help. But because of certain legislation, the PINS petitions are mandatory diversion now, which means the school can no longer really initiate a PINS, nor can the parent initiate the PINS. It now has to go to a mandatory PINS diversion process. But that's like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound for some kids, because their mental health symptomology and substance symptomology is already far past diversion. So we can't get them help. We can't, by basically getting them into care, we know what treatment does. But the challenge right now is the systems have to leverage them are not, they're broken, they're unhooked. And sadly enough, I work with parents every day in my private practice office, in our treatment programs that desperately want their kids in program. But the parents feel like they have no ability and no power to get their 15 or 16 or 17-year-old the help they dramatically need. So something has to dramatically change with the system. That would be my larger answer, and I think that's what we need to continue to look at when we start to kind of look at legislation and what things are done and how things are doing and going on in our communities. Because these are our kids, and the age is dropping. We're no longer worried about this happening going into high school. We've got the 5th graders and 6th graders already involved with this. We're way behind the curve, and we're beginning our interventions at the end of middle and beginning of high school. The horse is already out of the barn across the countryside. Yeah. Oh, yours have to. Yeah, I'm sorry, dear. Well, unfortunately, that the legalization for adults has already occurred. I think the challenge is this unintended consequence for our youth really wasn't really well thought out, I don't think, because when we're looking at how this is going to impact our kids now, I mean, you know, we're already seeing some of the damage. We've seen the damage in other states. So unfortunately, the law is the law because it's for adults. It's not legal. It's not legal for kids, by the way. Remember, under 21, it's still legal. Kids don't want to hear that part. They talk about it like it's legal for them. But that's just adolescence and adolescent development. Of course, they want it to work for them. So, what's that? Yeah, it's a plant that I think cyanide is also in a lot of plants, right? I think, and that's what we have to tell them is it's a plant, and also alcohol is legal, right? But just because it's legal doesn't mean for some people it doesn't do damage, it doesn't wreck lives. So I think what has to happen first is arm ourselves with the real material, because we need to know, we can't think about marijuana as 20 or 30 years ago. We need to understand it for what it is today. I'm gonna if I get 3 more minutes and I'll cut. I just want to talk a little bit about mental health, psychosis and suicidality, because I think this is an important piece. And so basically, when we start to look at the mental health issues and implications with concentrates and the high concentrated THC cannabis today, we're talking about things like depression, suicidal ideation, we're talking about psychosis, even hypernemesis, which is a syndrome which is constant and profuse vomiting that starts to wreak havoc with the GI tract, occurs more in boys than females, and the only way to stop that is to stop using, but kids continue to use in spite of that, and cause a lot of irreparable damage to themselves. So when we look at the emotional dysregulation and depression, clearly what happens, and this is one example, THC mimics a chemical neurotransmitter that occurs naturally, and it's called anandamide. Anandamide fits into and releases in the pleasure center of the brain, good feelings. So when there's a presence of cannabis, the brain is perceiving that there's plenty of anandamide in the system. We don't need to produce any more anandamide. There's plenty of anandamide. But what it really is it's cannabis. It's THC, which is tricking and mimicking. It's kind of like a lock that goes in the door. It fits, but one turns and one doesn't turn. So it's affinity. It has the same affinity. It binds. So what starts to happen is, now I try to stop smoking for a day or two, and I start to go into acute withdrawal symptomology. Irritability, depression, mood lability, and it's because the anandamide that should be there to regulate my mood is not there because my brain told me to stop producing it because we thought we had plenty, but all we had was what was mimicking that with the THC. So you see from a neurochemical perspective how mood dysregulation and depression is impacted and influenced by THC. Right? The DSM-5, which is now 5TR, basically looks at things like irritability, anger, aggression, depressed mood, as some of the withdrawal symptomology. So yeah, it's in the DSM-5TR. It is withdrawal symptomology. Is it similar to alcohol? Alcohol is a bit different, but similar that they all have drug-specific withdrawal symptomologies. Alcohol can be very life-threatening depending on how long somebody has been drinking and where they're at with their alcohol issue. But the cannabis is really such an irritable mood for a bunch of days that most kids smoke by day 2 again, day 3 again, because they don't want to feel what they're feeling. So it's the same wicked cycle, right? To self-medicate. Yeah.
We got a top assembly on the state of New York. We still what message do you got for him? And Steve, what message about
Well, what I can tell you, what the assemblyman did is I had the pleasure to get to meet him a little earlier, and I got his card, and he committed to come visit my adolescent treatment facility. He's putting his money where his mouth is, and he's coming on out there, and he's coming to visit, and we're going to bring brainstorm to see how we can help kind of, re-leverage or reconnect the system. So right on cue, yeah. So we need all the help we can get. So folks, I'm gonna, I know I can go on and have more slides, but I don't want to take on too much more of your time. I do this presentation free of charge. I do the full version for high schools. I've done plenty of high schools from all the way out east, Mount Sinai, I've done plenty. So if you think there's a school or something that would want to do this, I have about 7, you know how to get a hold of me. Thank you, folks.
We had great discussion, and discussion will continue. But I really want to give Paul from Long Island Sound a few minutes to show his talent, which he's donated here for us tonight. So guys, give him your attention and listen to a beautiful concert.
Thank you, sir. I will say I was very moved tonight by all the speakers, and I had specific things to do. But I'm going to do this one song that I know Gary loves, and I think it's very telling of this song. And here it